Hangs out. Good evening. Hello. 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 Hola. Ohayo. Konbanwa. Guten Nacht. Is that the one? Guten Nacht. We're going to go to the dark side of the moon. Even though, what even is that? Hello, Jose. I don't know who these guys are, but they think it's funny to talk about the dark side of the moon. Saludos. Let me see if I can get my accent a little bit better. Saludos. Is that a little better? Almost like a native speaker. My goodness. This guy's an expert. I don't know what in the world these pictures are popping up on my thing. Very strange. All right. Clickety clackety. Got that pulled up. Alrighty. What do we have here? Well, I can tell you one thing. That treasure chest on D Live is getting opened tonight. So I started the stream a little early, get a little bit of a head start. And we're just going to talk about some random stuff until some people show up. That's how it goes on Friday night. So let's see. What do I need to know? Not much. We'll do a little education. Crack my knuckles. Prepare. I'll tell you what. Hyperextension of the elbows. Alrighty. That was good. That was good too. So these push-ups, guys. I'm a not a large guy by any means, but like check me in a couple of months. I'll tell you what. So Dark Side out of Lincoln, Nebraska by Empyrean Brewing Company. Fine ales and lagers since 1990. Most porters are bitter. Not so. Not so with this one. Pretty impressive, if you ask me. All right, so here we go. This is just something that struck me. A couple of things happened this week. Had a few interesting conversations. Talked with lots of different people from all over the place. Cool. Love how the comments combine. Helio should do this. Yes. Yes, for sure. Yeah. Tell that to Jesus there, Creative Bear. All right. So this week, with the topic of words and etymology came up a couple of times. I did a stream earlier this week, deconstructing and debunking the turn this water into gravy. Hey, amen to that. Hey, Nathaniel, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? Was it just you so far?
Just me so far. Yep.
Cool.
I was debriefing my week. For
Oh,
those
yeah?
of you watching my stream right now that haven't seen Nate before, I've got a lot of new people that are watching my stream these days, Nate.
Because of D Live?
On D Live and from the FE Discord, the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord. So I've got
Oh, yeah.
a lot of different people watching my stream. Not a lot of people, but just a lot of different people. You have your view count is so anyway. This is Nate, guys. He's a author and now a publisher and creative fella, and there's more I could tell you about him, but um,
It's a really good time to hang out
you
with.
said it's a really good time to hang out with.
And very high stakes. Hanging out with me might get you in some trouble.
Do you hear me laughing? You know that saying that they have that I laugh in the face of ha ha ha, I laugh in the face of danger. It's so funny. Right before I started the stream, I was naming the title, and I was like, what do I want to name tonight's title? Well, first of all, anyone anyone that denies Christ, it just obviously that irritates me, especially ones that claim to do so under the name in the name of the Bible. So I was like, okay, I'll beat this horse until the day I die. I don't think
Not
that
as
there.
bad. It's not as bad denying Christ, but like trying to sway other believers from it. Like having it's when you
Call
approach
it
it.
what you want. I'm pretty I'm pretty warlike against um I won't and when I say warlike, I am speaking in metaphor. By the way, the person, I think that she still watches my streams for some reason. She's under the impression that I am doing what are the veiled threats. So when I use phrases like um warlike, I'm not referring to actual physical bloodshed in the real tangible physical world. I am referring to I will um, I will destroy you with rhetoric. I will end your existence in a metaphorical and logical way. I'm just kind of debriefing. Charles, welcome. Um,
I'm like
so
friends with my
so
local police department, and it's funny that I just picture somebody going down to talk to the sheriff and being like, this person made internet threats against me.
yeah, yeah,
Well, who are they? Gospel bearer. You know, that investigation's not going to go very far. You know what I mean?
yeah, 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 yeah. So check this out. There's this person. They started out. Um, they started out under the name of Light Energy. Okay, their new name is Light Waves. And Jose, I don't know if you're still here, um, but
It's always
but
some dumb girl.
this is good information for you to have, Jose.
I was looking into
Let
who.
me finish my story.
No, you go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so this Light Energy that turned their name into Light Waves first attacked me on one of my streams and started denying um, Yeshua, Jesus, as God, right? And telling all of my viewers, and they actually somehow grappled and and actually convinced people to stop watching me. There was about 5 or 6 people at the time that were regulars, and then all of a sudden, okay, cool. So light energy slash light waves, which I believe light energy is her current I think Light Energy is her current name. She shows up on Nathan Oakley's server, and she shows up on the FE 24/7 Discord, and she has a vendetta against me, and she believes and made comment in um which stream was she in? Um, was it yours or was it Witsit? No, it was Witsit. So Witsit gets it. Witsit gets it as a bear that's been around for a long time. I don't know if you remember that name in Owen streams over the time, but Witsit gets it's a cool guy. So I was in he was doing a stream about the Bible, okay, and it was good stuff. And anyway, she happened to be in there trying to subvert all of his viewers, and he does get it. So Witsit gets it was doing this stream about the Bible. He's he's hardcore. He's good, faithful to the Word of God, so on and so on. He's on the same page as we would be. all that good stuff. But all that being said, she was in there trying to subvert his people, and he's got like 90, 115, 120 live viewers. He's, hey, what's up, Alex?
Mm.
How dare you say Alex? It's Woofy Productions. Um, go subscribe to Woofy Productions. I haven't shouted him out in way too long, but everybody subscribe to Woofy Productions on YouTube. Making music gravy music that's gravy that turns into music, something along those lines. But anyway, this light waves person, light energy, what in the world their name is, they're allowed to have their beliefs. What I have a problem with is when somebody hops into everybody else's streams and everybody else's quote unquote territory and does their best to try to subvert that. um, I don't go. I know you've done this, Nate, because you're a
Mm.
little bit more of a warrior than me, but I don't go to atheist streams and be like, you all are all fools, says the word of God. And I just, that's not my calling.
Oh, I've only
um
ever done it on accident. I did go to that Discord, but
I got you. Yeah, that's kind of what I was referring to.
that was a special ministry I was a part of.
But
I didn't ask for it,
I
but I
got you.
rose
But
to the
anyway, my
occasion.
point is, now
It's so
for
funny
some,
because they. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
this girl thinks that I've made some type of threat because I said something to the effect of destroying heretics, or heretics deserve to be destroyed. I might have said something along those lines.
And she got scared.
Well, she thinks that that is a veiled threat
Yeah, that's why
of
women shouldn't be allowed in men's discussions unless they're very carefully vetted by their husbands.
and
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Like
I hear
I
you.
don't know. I was looking into the one just for shits and giggles. I was looking into the one that was like harassing me.
Yeah.
Who does this whole thing where she types God with like a dash
Yes, yeah,
just to show
That's
how
a Jew thing.
yeah, just to show how holier than you she is.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I was looking
So
into the other
Oh,
thing
I'm sorry. It's a small hat thing. I can't say that live. People will get flagged.
too late. But yeah,
we can't say Jew.
I mean, you can, but only in a positive context. I mean, they'll read it in the script, and then they'll just start. You'll have
Can we say
latency
Jewish?
issues and all kinds of stuff.
Can we say the Jews are great
Yes,
yes,
you're
stealing,
absolutely
at
encouraged to
stealing
talk
and
about them in
lying?
that manner. But if you're gonna say something
just
negative, you just have to say the hat wears of tiny proportion.
Oh, I see.
uh,
So, anyways, I was looking
But
into
yes,
this.
they do. Like anytime that they won't write the name of God, or because they consider it being a graven image, or it's some dumb like
no, it's
pharisaical rule.
So I was looking into this Jewish woman and kind of Jew, and I was like, I wonder what else she's interested in. And it for some reason it showed me everything she was subscribed to, but like I was like it was kind of like a new trick, but I tried it on somebody else I was mad at and it didn't work. But anyways, it showed me her subscriptions. It's all like makeup, weight loss, and
It's
how to
part
make.
of the YouTube thing too. You can make what you are subscribed to shared. It's a setting on YouTube.
Okay, so it's all makeup, weight loss, and how to make money, which is really funny because just out of like pulling it out of my ass when I was attacking her in the comments, because you know my policy against uppity women, I insult their looks. It seems to handle a lot better than insulting their ideas because they just don't stop talking. Like a man knows when they've lost, but a woman never learns. So I just call them ugly.
What about
But,
men with too much estrogen? Do they know when they've lost?
well, I'm not dealing with that. That's a whole different topic. The point is,
On what Devin was bringing up, we actually had that discussion, oddly enough, at work today.
so
on
I
what
Like the
can't.
on G.
legitimacy.
Okay. So
Oh,
this is
okay.
my line
Yeah.
against her because I knew she was ugly. She looks like human feces injected with Botox and done over with makeup.
Uh,
But I knew she was ugly. She got rid of her icon so that she could hide it. But I just randomly said, "No wonder you can't control your weight. You can't control your mouth."
yeah,
Found out
I saw that
you
comment.
subscribe to a bunch of weight loss channels. Anyway, and for everybody who thinks I'm being mean, she denied, like, she tried to specifically lead people away from Jesus and say he wasn't God, and came onto my channel to do that, and then mocked him and totally supported the disgusting blasphemy that I was showing people, and said, that's great, right on, make fun of Jesus, he's just a man. So fuck her, no quarter. How about that? Excuse my language.
I'm not necessarily the one that excuses you, but for all intents and purposes, you're excused.
Also, keep in mind that there are children within hearing distance of you tonight. So.
Oh, well, you gotta tell me that before I start.
I just did. I gave you fair warning now.
Now you know.
They were being loud at that point, which is why you'll see me muted on and off because they're kind of hanging out in the background. So.
All right, so check this out. This is very important. It's in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40. I'm going to pull this up in the blue letter. Give me just a moment. Blue letter.
The people in the chat were laughing. You two guys weren't laughing because you're kind-hearted souls.
I was laughing, but I was muted, so you couldn't hear it.
Oh, really? Is that what's going on? I was sitting
just
here.
Look at my little face icon somewhere in the bottom, and you'll see.
I was sitting here just like my audience is dying, and if I know how to handle a bad joke, you just keep pushing it until they get so uncomfortable.
I don't know why. Like, I woke up at 4:30 this morning, and like I was just like awake. So I was like, hey, whatever. I'm gonna get up. And for some reason, like I came across this like Operation High Jump, like old school video reel clip from like the 1940s, and it was showing like the first Antarctic exploration, and they actually had like documentary footage of front, like black and white documentary, like, you know, like the old school handheld like real camera footage. It was actually really fascinating. I enjoyed watching it, and it was actually very informative. It was pretty cool.
Okay.
So, just a side note, that interesting topic. I don't know. Go on with Isaiah. That's way more interesting.
Well, what you said is fine. I just want to spark the evening off of this verse, okay? And we'll everything I want to flow from this and derivatives thereof. So this is in the book of Isaiah. I'm putting it big screen. Okay, it should be big enough. Let me just double check here with my, yeah, more than big enough as far as I can tell. All right. So what we have here is also quoted in Matthew chapter 3, verse 3. We'll go to that verse as well. Just a reiteration for sake of context, and it's very, 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 very important. So what we have here is a prophecy given in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 3. The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. All right, but let me point this out here real quick. So what we have here is Yod He Vav He, Yod He Vav He. That is God's name. Like my name is Devin. That's God's name. That's His name. Specific.
What's up, Nick?
What's up? What's up?
Nothing.
Specific to Him. Okay. And then what we have at the end of the verse is Le Lo He Nu. Le Lo He Nu. This is the word Elohim. It's what we colloquially know as Elohim, but it's got, Hebrew does these different suffixes at the end of the words and stuff like that. So our God, Anu, is R. That's the, what is the word R grammatically? O-U-R. Then the plural possessive pronoun, I believe, is what that's called. But anyway, the point of the matter is, this is referring to God. This is referring to Him by name. No mistaking who is being talked about, that the way is being prepared for. And in the book of Matthew, we'll stay with the KJV for kicks and giggles. It doesn't really matter. For he So, okay, so let me blow this up some. All right, for this is he that was spoken of by the prophet Isaiah, saying, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord. Yod he vav he, make his paths straight. Who is speaking? So, first of all, the man in the wilderness is John the Baptist. Second of all, the one he is preparing the way for is Jesus, otherwise known as Yehoshua HaMashiach. If you really, really care about the Hebrew and that's just what your fancy is, he's colloquially known. I would say more people in the world know uh, him by the name Jesus than even Jesus. However, there are obviously a lot of English speakers that would even possibly be unfamiliar with Jesus, but I think his name's familiar to pretty much all people, regardless of how you pronounce it. That being said, Jesus is Yahweh. These verses clearly delineate that. I just wanted to share that from the Old Testament, prophet Isaiah,
He's
and
also he's
go,
also Yahweh because like without the person of Jesus, there is no access to salvation. Like it's just the very basic. Like you have to be missing a really significant heart element to be swayed by something like that because it's like that means that you didn't ever lean on God for salvation. You didn't ever personally know God. All you had was like old Hebrew law, which is a really, at the end of the day, a really cold, like empty thing. Like it's such a huge, even my buddy Joey, even Chuck, who take Hebrew law very seriously, without the person of Christ, the idea of
I would actually say that it's not Hebrew law; it was God's law.
right. So God's law very seriously, without God's law for the Hebrews very seriously.
Which even honestly, on that note, and I'll let you continue with your thought here in just a second. Not to cut you off, anyways, but I found an interesting passage in Deuteronomy where it actually delineates and states that God's law is in fact the Ten Commandments. That is the law. The
Oh,
rest of it was
I
the
asked you about that
statute
one.
and structure. Yeah, I found the answer for you. That's what I'm telling you. Because you did
Been
ask me, and
forever.
I remembered that. But God's law is delineated as the Ten Commandments, and the rest are the statutes and judgments in which they are to live in the land in which they dwell.
You found that in Deuteronomy. I'd be curious where that is.
Deuteronomy chapter 4.
Chapter 4? Okay.
Correct.
Sweet.
So yeah, just as a side note, continue on your thought now.
No, thank you. I was just gonna say, like, even for you who takes that law very seriously and strives to follow it, without the person of Christ, like if you only had God and like maybe if you only had God the Father and maybe the Holy Spirit, it would be like a really hollow, empty thing to follow. Like you
And
would say that.
Jesus alliterates to that too, and he says specifically, even if you are to keep the whole law and die, you're still guilty of the second death. Like without his blood, you're still going to die the second death.
If someone was going to reject the words of Jesus, or just the whole New Testament, is there anything in the Old Testament you would point to make that point?
Just that these sacrifices were never intended to be a payment for sin. They were always a, for lack of a better term, promissory note looking forward to the covering of the Messiah. It was always pointing forward to the Messiah.
no one was ever
Jesus
saved.
specifically.
No one
Jesus
was ever
specifically
saved
said,
by
yes,
sacrifices.
correct. It was always a tiding. It was always biding time until the Messiah came. Abraham's faith is what justified him in the Messiah. The Messiah was always the promised one, and Jesus said, "You already heard about me being preached by Moses." Like it was always looking forward to the Messiah. He was always the promise, and he was always the redemption plan. Like it was, never. It was never a question.
I'm kind of half joking around, but Isaac was saved by a sacrifice. So,
in a very literal sense, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
At that moment,
No,
I mean,
that's pretty
Dad
funny.
joke
thought
if
him a
I've ever
good
heard one.
60 to 100 years or whatever it was. So.
Yes,
That's pretty
but
funny.
yes, he was literally saved by a sacrifice.
No,
It's like
I'm sorry. Hold on. He wasn't literally saved by the sacrifice. His corporeal life was saved by a sacrifice, not
Correct.
his
His
eternal life.
His physical life was
Yeah.
saved by the provided sacrifice, not his eternal life.
Yeah.
So that joke was pretty well dissected there. Good job, guys.
Hey, that's what autists do. Autists are gonna autist.
Also, it was a solid dad joke. I mean,
It
on
was.
so many levels.
It was.
Yeah. I was in a Bible study one time and they were talking about how Moses, this isn't that funny, but Moses, we were talking about Moses or whatever, and he was talking about like the salvation of Moses and how he like left the Egypt. And he was saying our salvation always begins with the death of the old man. And I just point out that what's interesting is Moses's salvation or whatever, freaking, I can't remember the metaphor, but it was when Moses fled Egypt. I said it started because he killed somebody too. And so I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. I never really gave it much thought after that. But I think there's something about that, like the old Bible stories, the dramatic ones. It like a lot of it is marked by blood there when someone has like a major change. So I don't know. I probably have to get more thinking of that. But anyways, I think the main thing about this Love Light girl and the Beta Bird bitch,
Love light energy / light wave.
Oh, Love Light's somebody else. Love Light.
Oh, okay.
I heard.
Gotcha.
I don't even remember why Love Light was on my mind. But the light woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Beta bitch is they have no, and that's a female dog.
You muted yourself, bro.
How did that happen?
I don't know. You muted yourself there for a minute.
Did I do it at a good time to censor myself?
Well, you said it right. You muted yourself right after saying that's a female dog.
Anyway, I'm working on it. It's not like a bad word, but Hebrew law doesn't allow women to teach the law, as far as I know. So I would just point that out to them. I mean, does it? Are women supposed to teach the law?
They are not to be in an authority position over any man in teaching. They can teach women, they can teach other women, and they can teach children.
Okay, so these women are I mean, if their whole plan for salvation is the law, they're screwed because they're trying to teach it.
Well, I mean, if their whole plan for salvation is the law, then they were screwed well before that. So
yeah, but even under their own definition, they're screwing it up. It's like, yeah, the law is everything, Jesus is nothing, and then
the law literally just condemns you. That's all it does. Like,
yes.
And it shows you your need for a savior, which is the whole reason that God gave his law to man as a governing statute and to point you to the fact that you need a savior.
Yeah, especially those two women. What losers. I'm just saying, like, if we were going to measure us three against the law, we'd get a couple points above those women. That's all I'm saying.
If points were a thing, and everything is made up and the points don't matter in our lives. So.
Anyways, you want to just quit this stream and watch Whose Line Is It Anyways for a little bit?
Wow.
We could play Whose Line Is It Anyways on stream with Bible stuff.
Yes,
Devin,
we could.
because everyone already knows that the women are wrong and the men are right. They know that walking in. We don't have to talk. Everyone knows Jesus is God. Like, it's not like a serious thing.
It is very serious as people continue to spread disinformation.
Are people being swayed by that? Like, seriously? Like,
Yeah, that's what I was telling you.
It's an
It's so
extremely
hard
permeating doctrine thing right now.
It is. It's all
Especially
over the
through
place.
Hebrew roots movement.
It's
Like
so
the people that are taking like God's law seriously, it is spreading like wildfire through that movement that Jesus isn't actually God. And they have like they take these scriptures and they just twist them completely out of context and blatantly ignore other scriptures like the ones that Devin just read that insanely point out. And it's insanely funny too, the literalness that they're taking the Bible by, but yet they won't go back and read the actual like original manuscripts that literally point to the fact that Jesus is God completely through the Old Testament. Like,
what about like everyone?
Sorry, guys.
I'm always like I'm always trying to get away from just like dissecting the Bible, because it's I don't know, it just doesn't seem to ever lead to like an endpoint. It doesn't seem like there's one interpretation of the Bible that's self-evident, because the Bible is so big and convoluted. Um,
One,
and
I'm
I'm
sorry, one interpretation of the Bible, is that you are using that word correctly, right? You mean to say interpretation, not translation?
yeah, interpretation.
Just making sure. Okay, go ahead.
Um,
I was hoping that's what you meant by it.
yeah,
Because I was like, translation. Yeah, the translation thing. There's.
that's I just don't even
Yeah.
care to talk about that right now.
Yeah,
No,
for sure.
my point is, it's like no, like if like you had to have a certain IQ point and read the whole Bible, and you would always come out as a Baptist of the third order or something, or like, like you always came out as a old law but with Jesus guy, or you always came out as a Catholic that rejects the Pope, or an Orthodox guy who's Greek. It just obviously doesn't work. So I'm always
Sounds like a bunch of labels to me.
well, that's my point. Is I'm always there's not one interpretation of the Bible that just like you formulaically get to, and so I always am trying to get away from it. And I'm just wondering, like, these people, like, in their lives, like, for instance, who would they consider a good person then? Because it's kind of like judging the tree by its fruit.
I thought no
Like,
one was good but God. I thought that was kind of a moot point and a bad argument with a potentially false premise. Am I wrong?
uh, I don't know. Good is a very broad term. It's like
People,
Well, when
people,
Jesus was confronted with that question,
yeah.
I mean, that was his answer. Was the biblical answer was just there's none good except for God.
my point is, well, okay, you want me to elaborate? The Bible has some very specific suggestions about who to spend your time with and who not to
It
spend your
does.
time.
Do not walk in the
So,
counsel of sinners.
so the group of
Yeah.
people that those people would be spending their time with, I just wonder, and like they would emulate or admire or follow or allow themselves to be influenced by or lead and want to serve. I wonder what those people would be like. Like, I wonder, like, okay, so with your interpretation, because I use the Bible to evaluate other people in my life. It's one of the major
It's
purposes.
pretty good marker, pretty good guide stone
Right.
to mark other people by.
Right. So it's like who should be in my life and who shouldn't? How should I treat my brother? How should I treat my wife? Who should be my wife? Like, how should
Well,
I
I would
treat
say
myself?
that you would probably want to start with a basis of wisdom versus foolishness.
No. My point is that your interpretation of the Bible seems to me will determine who these people are that come into your life, right?
How's
And
that? Can you
in a
give an
lot of ways.
example?
Well, for people who take the Bible seriously, it certainly influences the wives they choose,
Yeah. Okay.
for instance, and it influences the friends they choose. It very much here's an example.
I just thought of one
Okay,
too, but you give yours first.
okay, so like, let's say I'm studying history. George Washington, you know, good-ish, whatever. Since we can't use the word good, what
Colloquial. It's fine. Colloquially good.
yeah,
It's
so yeah,
it's
just
fine.
give me a break on that. Like, the whole dictionary fight's kind of annoying. Because the Bible wasn't written in English. Jesus wasn't confronted with the word good. You know what I mean?
I would say that the word probably is closer to be what holy, like it's probably closer to what we're
Perfect.
thinking of as
Perfect's a
good.
better one. But
Perfect, yeah.
but that's just the nature of the English language. But anyways, George Washington, good guy, bad guy.
I don't know. He's a Mason, so
Well, Stalin, good guy, bad guy. Owen, good guy, bad guy. Trump, good guy, bad guy. Hillary Clinton, good guy,
okay.
bad guy. Why? It's like, who do these people end up following? And it's like, and what ends up being like the priorities in their life? And like, how do they end up spending their time? you know, and it's like you click into this one girl's subscriptions and it's all like how to make yourself look artificially sexually attractive with makeup, how to make a bunch of money by screwing people or screwing the market so that you never have to meet the people you're screwing, or how to lose weight because you just can't control your eating, you know, like it's all like so shallow if you look at their lives, that it's like I read the Bible constantly, but not every day, but constantly. And like my life has really good fruit to show for it. You know, what are these people? Like what's the last thing that changed in what's her face's life? Why does Beta Bird hang out with somebody who think it's cool to make Jesus look terrible? Like even if you follow the old law, what's the use of mocking Jesus? You know what I mean? Like
I would say that, like, I mean, that's what the Pharisees did.
I have an example.
They should have been the people of everyone that knew who he was.
Maybe this would be closer.
It's an excuse to justify your actions. That's all denying Jesus, that's all denying God is ever going to boil down to, is you don't want to be accountable to anyone else for your actions.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Real quick
Yeah,
on this example, maybe this is closer to what you were talking about, Nate. Not that you can't express yourself, you know, perfectly, but when you mentioned the idea, for some reason, I immediately thought of people that only hang out with people that observe the Sabbath from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, and that's who they consider good, and everybody else isn't worth hanging out with. Is that a potential example of what you were talking about?
It's just they get so obsessed with this idea of morality that is very skin deep that they allow a bunch of other things to go. Like I was talking to a Catholic guy.
Hold on, before you go into the Catholic thing, I want to address your word skin deep, because
it doesn't have to do with Catholics.
It's you're not allowed to talk about. I'm just kidding. No, seriously, you said skin deep, and that's very important because that's exactly what Jesus said. That's exactly what God said. God examines the heart, and
Right.
we examine and observe people's behaviors. That's a limitation that's set upon us, and it's not necessarily something that we can alter. We are meant in some ways to observe people's behavior, but
It
obviously,
goes back to what we were talking about last week, Devin. I mean, we had that discussion last week.
well, what I'm about to say is obviously Jesus. You can finish your story in a second, Nate. I'm sorry, but obviously Jesus hung out with people that were demonstrably sinners, that would almost make you think that he wasn't paying attention to someone. However, again, God examines the heart. And what happened with those people? Were they mockers of God, or were they repentant people? And we have more than reason enough to believe that they were people that were led to repentance by his grace and by his presence.
And we look at his example too. Like, he even says, like, it's not the guy that's sitting on the street corner saying prayers and looking all haughty and like, look at me, I have it all figured out.
Yeah.
It's the guy that literally can't look at the sky at the end of the day and say, I'm sorry, God, I'm a failure. Like, I need your help. That's the guy that Jesus said gets it.
Exactly.
Like,
that is not the people.
Yeah.
So the guy that's like crying in the gutter with his face in his hands, and and everybody's like, oh, that sicko, that disgusting human being, he's such a sinner. That's actually not the sinners that are being referred to in Psalm 1. The sinners that are being referred to in Psalm 1 are the mockers of God, are the ones that are haughty and proud. Those are the people that Psalm 1 is talking about, not the repentant.
Psalm 1.
It's
Jeez.
What's that?
I kept thinking you were saying someone.
Oh, PSALM.
Confused.
Yeah, Psalm 1. I thought he was saying someone too, and I was like, I thought he said someone referring to, and I was like, wait, what? But yeah, I get what you're saying now. Psalm 1. I
thought there was like somebody. It was like an obvious. I don't know.
Sorry,
like
guys.
someone that we can't be named, or I don't know.
I was trying to put it together too. I was like, which someone is he referring to? Like,
No, I understand now.
Okay. So anyway, tell the rest of your little thing with the Catholic
My
guy.
thing? Oh,
the Catholic. Yeah, the
I
Catholic.
got a little distracted by the guy like spewing lies in the chat, but it's so funny. It's like I heard this Nathan guy is a bad guy. Not only is he gay, but he also had 5 girlfriends and also has a wife. It's like he didn't say that, but I've seen that kind of stuff. There was like
We can move on. I'll direct the chat guy. It's fine.
made me a mod. I could really burn this house down.
I've got a lot of mods.
So,
Go ahead.
So I was talking to this Catholic guy, and he was telling me, and I haven't really done the research. It just made logical sense to me, but he was telling me it was like a well-known fact that the Pharisees were eating babies. You know,
It was a well-known fact. Interesting. Continue.
so like I didn't look into that, but the way I see it is like, it's pretty obvious now that the ruling elite has just like a really bad habit of eating babies, and I get it. We all have vices, but that one's pretty bad. I know the Bible says not to judge, but I'll just go ahead and say that that's a pretty jerk move.
It doesn't say not to judge. It says not to judge people outside of Christianity.
I know the Bible says not to judge, but I'll just go ahead and say that guy's a real jerk. It's a Norm Macdonald joke I've just been doing over and over again, and I thought it was so dumb the first time I heard it. But anyways,
it grows on you.
Yeah, it's one. He's like a cancer of comedy. So anyways, my point is like ruling class people do that, especially religious ruling class people really have a habit of doing that. And so it seems to me, and it's well known that the Pharisees, what they were doing was following the law of God, and then also adding a bunch of other stuff that they wanted to do on top of that to give them power.
It's my favorite parts of scripture when the Pharisees come to Jesus and they're like, oh, by the way, you're breaking this law. And he's like, oh, by the way, that's never my law and wasn't ever my law. So why don't you go stick a pipe in it, smoke that?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and keep doing my dad's law, and you guys can keep making your pretend man-made laws, and while you're at it, burn in hell. See you later, guys.
Yeah.
Like,
he's pretty aggressive.
Those are the people that he did not pull his punches with. And it's so funny, too, because he didn't waste his time talking to people that didn't want to listen. Because, like, his disciples, he's like, hey, guys, I got a secret for you. Let me tell you about the kingdom of God. And they're like, hey, why don't you tell all the rest of those people that? He's like, they're never going to get it, and they don't care. Like, it was like, what? He's like, I'm going to teach you guys, and you can go tell those guys, because they're not going to listen to me. They just want to see some cool tricks. Like, it was so, like, if you just read through the wordiness of it, like, it seems like he was a really down-to-earth guy that's just like, yeah, man, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. And if you don't get it, you're probably never going to get it, and you don't care in the first place. You're just here to see something cool.
It's a fascinating topic.
Jesus was pretty great. But so that...
Understatement of the 21st century. Jesus was pretty great.
Was pretty great.
Anyways,
it's an understatement to say the least. But
my point is I think that's just what happens when you that's what happens. You like follow the law of God, thinking you're satisfying God, and you can then go do what you want to do and eat a baby in order to get some magical power over the forces of the world, or something like that. Or get eternal youth or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
There's a lot of truth in like old fantasy stories. Like the idea, like I was watching that movie Stardust, which is great movie. It's evil, but it's great.
Evil but great. I'm listening.
It actually is pretty great. It's just like the evil, like there are some movies where the evil in it doesn't actually influence people to bad. Except for the gaming.
Tell us about this movie. What's up?
It
sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't know any. I don't really remember.
Well, what I was saying is there's a lot of truth in the old like mythological fantasy with like a vampire or a witch, where they, for instance, will like Hansel and Gretel. The witch tries to eat the little children
Sure, yeah.
and it usually has to do with eternal youth, like the vampire, you know.
Mother Gothel and Rapunzel would be another one.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Keeps the child to use for her own desires to grow younger, blah blah blah.
yeah, it's a really old story, and it makes a lot of sense because when you're evil, like let's say you're like somebody trying to fix the world, and you realize
Well, it's almost like they know that they're not going to get eternal life
yeah.
the way that it's intended to be achieved, so they want to achieve it in a corporeal manner.
So Fear comments in the chat, or those on the other side might think, I don't have to follow his law. All right, there's my little dance. He said, I don't have to follow his laws because I've got Jesus and he forgives. Yeah, that is the mentality of a lot of people.
Well,
And
it's the mentality of the abuse of grace.
it is a half truth.
Well, you don't stay there.
It's a lie that's wrapped in delicious bacon.
Oh wow, bacon.
Well, I
it's
never,
a
I never really understood that one because it's like
it's
I
a
don't know,
half truth.
if someone saves your life, you just like, and then you find out that guy like really just does not want you to eat pork. Like let's say Bob saves my life. Like I'm gonna get hit by a car, and Bob jumps in front of the car and like pushes me out of the way, saves my life. Happens to just miraculously get pierced in both of his hands and his feet for doing it, and then he and then like 10 years later he's like, Nate, I saved your life and I know you're grateful and everything. I just really hate pork. I swear, if you eat pork, you could be in China and I could be in Sweden and I would smell it. Could you just stop eating pork? Like, I don't know. Like, what kind of person's like, oh, screw you, Bob. What have you done for me lately? You know, those scars.
I mean, that was so last week. I mean,
yeah. You know what I mean?
I mean, you literally saved my life like 4 hours ago, and who are you, like, to demand this of me?
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, what if Bob's like, hey, the pork thing, good. You don't have to do it, but like, could you just like be a little nicer to your neighbor? For me, because you don't have to like kiss their feet. I'm not talking about like sodomy. You don't have to like get all buddy buddy, but just like if you see your neighbor's donkey like get their foot stuck, you've worked with donkeys, go pull it out. Could you do that just in case that happens? Like, just I don't know, screw you, Bob.
Oh, and by the way, if someone spits in your face, don't get mad about it. Just be like, you know what, man, you're probably having a bad day. Sorry, I'll pray for you and go about your life. Could you maybe do that every once in a while?
Yeah. And it's just like, and it makes sense when you think about it like that, because if like first thing with the metaphor and Bob told me that, like, don't get angry, I'd be like, Bob, I love you. I have a really hard time not getting angry. I'll do my best. Do you have any like advice for me? Like if so seriously, Bob, someone spits in my face, I don't do anything about it. And you talk to them and it builds a relationship or whatever.
Bob sounds, I don't
guy
know.
Who's just like, screw you, I don't care what you want from me.
Bob sounds a lot like this Jesus guy I know.
Bob sounds like a really great guy. I don't know much about this Bob you speak
I've
of.
heard his name isn't Bob. It's actually Yob, because back in the day they couldn't use B at the beginning of it's Yob. It's a mystical truth. If you understand that truth.
Oh wow, there is a bait.
I'm gonna go ahead and take a stab in the dark and say that this Yob guy, when he was hit by the car and suffered crucifixion wounds, that it's very possible that he died for a few days and came back to life. Is that a legitimate possibility?
Okay.
Coma.
So I actually just had a conversation, and for the first time in my entire learning life, something was made presently aware to me that I had never considered, and it really was interesting. So I was talking to this guy.
Was it when Nate said that Yob doesn't want you to eat?
No, not that. I was talking to this
You guys are
guy.
missing the point somewhat. It's like
No, you
somebody.
mentioned the 3-day thing. I just wanted, this is very strange
Sorry.
and interesting. And thank you, Homestead Bound Bear, for
I'm
all
intrigued.
the lemons. So check this out. The sun goes around 360 degrees. If you're a heliocentrist, this is true. If you're a geocentrist, this is true. So nobody needs to spiral right now. Most of the people in my chat are geocentrist, but pay
Can they
attention.
spiral if they believe in the ever falling galaxy spiral thing?
No,
Can they
no,
spiral
just
then?
hold
Since I'm
on.
not
Hold
since
on.
I'm not have to talk and I can hear you from the other room, I'm gonna go get a drink, but I'm listening.
Okay, got you. So check this out. 360 degrees in a circle. Pay attention. How many days do we have in a year? Well, that number is 365. Every single year on December 21st, the sun sets and rises in the same position. So it stops. It makes a 1-degree progression from December 24th, I believe it is, until December 21st the next year. And for those 3 days, I don't know if I did the days right there, but for 3 days, it stops. And that is where we get 363. But there's a mystery as to where the extra 2 and the extra 1 every 4 years comes from exactly. But with that being said, all of that might be a little bit above some of y'all's heads, probably not many of you, because most of you are probably already aware of this or have thought about it or understand what I'm talking about.
It's my first time hearing about it, so it's
But
pretty cool.
but here's the weird thing. For the first time in my entire life, I never really understood why we had 360 anything days, even if it is 365. I never correlated that to the circle of the sun, regardless of whether or not you're a heliocentrist or a geocentrist. I never correlated that to the degrees in a circle. I thought that was incredibly fascinating. And finding out about the December 21st, the 3 days where the sun rises and sets in the exact same location, opposed to every other day of the entire year. First of all, if you are a heliocentrist, that should beg some huge questions in regards to how in the world the Earth simply stops its revolution around the sun, which is what would have to be in regards to that moment, and in the sun raising from the exact same location for 3 days, and it stops its 1-degree progression every year. That's very fascinating. I don't understand yet the significance of that. I find it, you mentioned the 3 days, and it just sparked my memory on this conversation I had earlier today, because I thought it was very fascinating. I had never correlated 365 at all to the 360 degrees in a circle, and I find it fascinating, and I figured I'd share it with all of you. So tomorrow is leap day. I forgot all about that it would be tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow is the day that makes this a 366-day year.
Gives me
Also,
some more time before I have to pay rent. Yeah.
oh, nice. All right.
I'm very down to earth.
So everybody PayPal Nate for his rent money. Y'all
Yeah, that'd be great.
hook,
PayPal.me/Nathaniel Slattery.
there you go.
Rent is
Hook a brother up.
$1,000.
You said your rent is 3,000 a month. Is that what you said? Liar.
Is that a sin? It's okay to lie, because I only lie if it's funny or useful.
Oh wow, interesting. Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about what's her name that hid the 2 refugees or whatever.
Huh?
I'm forgetting the
Oh,
name.
Rahab?
Thank you. Yeah, I think I knew it.
Promiscuous woman, but real great lady, I think.
Well, I mean, Jesus did make a pretty solid habit of hanging out with people that did bad things, and then
I
he was
think-
like, "Hey, by the way, now that you know me, you should probably stop doing these bad things." And they're like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. I didn't ever think of that."
All right,
I
I'm
think-
laughing at Fear. I'm sorry. Fear did say, let's say Bob says,
I want to talk about that.
meet me here every Saturday. But
Okay,
you
if
think, I'll meet with you on Sunday and we'll call it good. That is
No,
funny.
okay.
That is funny.
Now, okay, so you're stretching the metaphor. Okay, so let's say Bob wrote down through talking to somebody else, he told Jeff to write down it's definitely Saturday. 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And then now everyone's like, no, definitely Sunday. And everyone's like, well, where's that in the Bible? That Bob, where is that in Bob's old book? And they're like, well, we hadn't come up with the word Saturday or Sunday, so there's a bunch of stuff that happened, but
I
like,
beg of you,
can't-
look at any traditional calendar. Which day is the seventh day?
we can't even.
That's not the point. That's not why the Catholic Church changed it to Sunday. You know that, Nate. It's the
No,
Lord's. You know that they celebrate it because it's called the Lord's Day, not because they call it the Sabbath, but because they call it the Lord's Day. And
it is considered the Sabbath though. But my point is,
now,
is
if that's
Nate,
something that they say,
this isn't me ribbing you or mocking you at all. But have you actually done any research into why the Catholic Church changed it to Sunday? Have you actually looked it up?
what do you mean looked it up? No, I
Have
haven't.
you actually?
I've had a few conversations about it. It's never been a huge priority of mine.
It's actually listed as an order from the Catholic Church as to why they changed it to Sunday.
Okay.
And you can go look it up.
You want to tell me about it?
They actually said, and this came a quote from a pope, and
Which
said
pope?
that
is it John the Eighth?
Okay.
No,
I want to say
I'm asking. I don't know.
I don't know, and I don't want to say something false.
Right. I was just hoping you did.
I don't know, but I do know that it was quoted from a pope that he said that him being the mouthpiece of God had the authority to change it from Saturday to Sunday. That gave him the authority to change it.
No, it's not in the Nicene Creed, Fear. Nothing about the day of the Sabbath is in the Nicene Creed.
No, it was an actual edict that went out from a pope, and he said that I have the authority, being God's mouthpiece, to change it from Saturday to Sunday.
I'm
That
looking it
doesn't
up.
make any sense.
Hold on.
What was he changing? So he changed what? What was he changing?
The day that would be considered the Sabbath.
Hold on.
Because it was traditionally always seen as the seventh day of the week, and he wanted it moved to the first day of the week.
That doesn't make
And
any sense.
Pope Sylvester the First, 314 to 335 AD.
What did he say?
Decrees the transfer of Sabbath rest. I'll put it on the screen. Decrees the transfer of Sabbath rest to Sunday, and that's the whole excerpt that I put in there. I know it's probably small unless you're looking on a laptop. I'll read it. Rabanus Maurus, 776 to 856, abbot of Fulda and later Archbishop of Mainz, Germany, was rated one of the greatest theologians of his age and probably the most cultured man of his time and exceptionally learned in patristics. Besides,
Hey, I know the Bible says not to judge, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that sounds like a pretty good guy. I'm just saying.
Which one?
Sounds like Chuck's laughing. Go ahead, though.
All right. Besides, he was a zealous defender of the papacy and its teachings. In one of his works, he says, Pope Sylvester instructed the clergy to keep the feriae, which I guess is the Latin for Sabbath. I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm just taking a guess. And indeed, from an old custom, he called the first day of the week the Lord's Day, on which the light was made in the beginning, and also the resurrection of Christ is, excuse me, oh my goodness, is celebrated.
Yeah, that was always the explanation I heard, is that's when Christ was resurrected.
Let me continue
with
with
the He had Pentecost too.
Let me continue with the quote. I'm just going to skip this next paragraph. Pope Sylvester, first among the Romans, ordered the names of the days of the week, which they previously called after the names of their gods. That is the day of the sun, the day of the moon, the day of Mars, the day of Mercury. By the way, if you're not familiar, that'd be Sunday, that'd be Monday, that'd be Mardi in French, Mardi. That'd be Mardi, the
The
day of
original.
Mars. That's Tuesday. The day of Mercury, which would be Mercredi in French. Mercury is Wednesday. And of Jupiter, that would be um, jeudi. Jupiter, the day of Jupiter, jeudi in French.
Oh, you're losing me,
Jupiter.
man.
I,
Just
I know. Venus, vendredi, Venus in
I'm
French.
not a lawyer.
Hey, vendredi is French for Friday.
Country of
Venus.
origin, please. Can you use it in a sentence?
I am just giving a reason how and where those words were in other languages. Anyway, Saturday, Saturn. They should be called Feriae after that is the first Feria and the second Feria and the third Feria, fourth Feria, fifth Feria, sixth Feria. Because that in the beginning of Genesis it is written that God said concerning each day, on the first, let there be light, on the second, let there be firmament, let the earth bring forth verdure, I don't even know what that word means, etc. But he, Sylvester, ordered them to call the Sabbath by the ancient term of the law, to call the first Feria, the Lord's Day, because on it the Lord rose from the dead. Moreover, the same Pope decreed that the rest of the Sabbath should be transferred rather to the Lord's Day, Sunday, in order that on that day we should rest from the worldly works for the praise of God. Um,
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, I understand the whole idea of him like
I'm going to post a
having
video in the chat, a link to a video for folks to watch after the fact. It's in my religious study for Christians playlist, but it is a very good video on this topic for those of you that would like to study and learn more.
the point is it's a commemoration of Christ's resurrection mostly. That's why.
Well, obviously, people take great differ, or what's the word for it? They oppose that what you just said vehemently.
What? It's a commemoration of that?
Yeah, they say the Sabbath is a commandment, period. End of story. Um,
Well, Christ came. I mean, it's like, yeah, the Sabbath
Alright,
is
hey
a
guys, I want to do a
commandment,
video
period,
on the
end of
Sabbath.
story. Okay, so what does the Sabbath mean and how do you treat it? And then, okay, welcome bickering endlessly.
There is very specific instructions on what is the Sabbath and how you keep it.
All right, Chuck, I know you know that, but it's like,
Oh, you're saying elaborate for the sake of those that wouldn't know.
yeah, and it's also
Basically, you're supposed to rest, you're not supposed to work, and you're not supposed to cause anyone else to work.
okay. So, do we go from sunset to sunset, or do we go from midnight to midnight?
It would actually be from sun up to sundown.
Okay, sun up to sundown. Okay.
Not
So,
according to those special people with cotton hats that they wash too many times in hot water and in a hot dryer, and they incidentally shrunk in a quite precarious and
great,
unfortunate way.
so by work, what does that mean? Does that mean your employment?
Anything that makes you money for in the most for most.
Okay, so anything that makes you money. Okay, so
I would also go as far as to say that labor, like hard physical labor. Like if you're a farmer, don't go out and farm. Like,
is it that or is it money?
Whatever you do for your occupation, your work.
Okay, great. Why should I trust you?
Because that's what God said. Rest from your work.
Okay. What did God mean by work?
In 6 days he created everything. The seventh day he rested. He did no work.
Okay. So did he mean hard physical labor?
I would say if that's your job. See, like this is where like
that's what I'm saying.
I would say that like it's what the Holy Spirit convicts you of.
My
like if one person says you know, I feel like gardening is hard work. I don't want to go out and weed my garden on the Sabbath. I feel like that's pretty hard work, and I don't want to do it. My conscience doesn't feel right about that. Okay, so don't do it. If you have a clear conscience and you can say, you know, it's very relaxing for me to go out and pick weeds in my garden, and it's a time for me to just be alone with God and enjoy his creation. For that person, it's probably not work. It's going to apply to each person differently.
Hold on, real quick. I just want to ask this question. What, Alex? You said that was pretty intense. What did I do that was pretty intense? Was I?
You scratched your beard in a very menacing fashion.
No. Did I do anything that was I didn't do anything that was offensive towards you guys, right? Intense doesn't mean offensive. Don't get me wrong. I just read the words that was
I'm
pretty.
offended by your intenseness right now.
Oh my gosh. I read the words that was pretty intense and go, hey, did I do something bad or wrong? I'm just curious. I was confused. Hi, Giganta Bear. Welcome. Hi, Bodita Bear, or by Bodito Bear. I know you've been here all night. Awesome. What's up? Allegedly, there's 11 people here, but I'm only seeing like 3 or 4 people chatting. So speak up, you lurkers.
The rest of them are bots.
Don't lurk. Let's see here.
Nate, what you are saying looks extremely intense.
What?
I said what you're.
My brother just had to have pizza, and at 9:30 at night, I hate, and it's like it's been a rough day, so I'm probably a little annoyed for unfair.
You're allowed to be hangry, Nate. It's a man thing. We're allowed to be hangry.
Fasting. I ordered it an hour. I know. I understand, Nick. I understand. Forget it. It's just like Southerners. It's a long conversation. You can't just deliver the pizza and act like they do in the north. The Sabbath.
Shabbat shalom.
My point is,
you know what the most annoying thing to me is when someone says that to me on the Sabbath.
So listen. Okay, so listen.
Sorry,
so it's all about your conscience, right?
No, well, your kind of your heart. It is a matter of the measure of your faith.
Like, if your conscience is clearly telling you to do something that you know to be contrary to Scripture, I would say it's probably not your conscience. But
yeah, I would agree with that too.
Because we're supposed to try any spirit that talks to us.
Yes, absolutely.
Whether it be from God.
So your conscience shouldn't say,
hey, you should go steal that loaf of bread. Like, it's not going to tell you to do that.
But like, the command is to observe the Sabbath.
What I mean by your conscience isn't like your inner monologue. That's not what I mean by your conscience. What I mean by your conscience is like, if you're doing something and you can feel in your heart that what you're doing is wrong, you know it's wrong. Like, the Bible speaks very clearly to that. Like, to the man that's sinning, he knows it's sin. Like, you don't have to question it. Like, if you know in your heart that what you're doing is wrong, to you it's sin.
Yeah, for sure. I guess what's really always been so confusing about this, Nate,
because like some people, like I talk to some people and they're like, I won't go to a restaurant or I won't go to a party on the Sabbath day and hang out with my family because I don't want to break God's commands. I'm like, that's extreme. Like,
well, no, hold on. Why is this the one command? Well, it's not the only one technically. There's a whole different ballpark. Did you know that the only time that it talks about that it uses the phrase the 10 commands and the second tablet, have you looked up the second tablets of Moses and those laws that he delineated on the actual 10 commandments? Are you familiar with this weird thing?
No,
yeah, it speaks to it. It speaks to it in Deuteronomy as well.
I feel like we shouldn't move away from the Sabbath until
I understand. So
I do a good job of.
Why is it that murder? Why is it that murder isn't treated this way?
Wait,
Oh, like what we decide is like what is murder and what is just killing?
No, okay. I think
Is
murder.
that like the why don't we have the same conversation about what it means to murder? Is that what you're getting at? Is
Or
to keep the Sabbath.
yeah, or rather that. Yeah, okay, maybe that's not a good one.
well, one of the commandments is honor your father and mother.
Well, let's just go with the first one. Literally the
Okay,
most important one.
let's
You
just go
shall
with
have
it.
no other gods before me. Okay, why is it like that's unmistakable? There, that's unmistakable command, and in my opinion, the most important command of all.
It's not.
Um,
It's not, Devin.
it is though,
No,
for
it's
a
not.
lot of different
It's not.
reasons. It's the first command, and it's
It's
the
not,
first
though.
command even by Jesus.
But it's not. Because
It
people
is though.
still no, it's not.
I would say it's of equal importance to all the rest, but it is ranked as being the first command.
It's ranked first in both God's mouth and tablet, and
That's not what
also in the
I'm not saying.
words
It's
of
not that.
Jesus.
What I'm saying is, it's not clean cut.
Okay, well, let me just
Oh, you mean
continue.
what you're saying is it's not as clean cut as what we would like. There's no argument about what that means, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Is that what I'm understanding from you, Nate?
there's still argument. No, yeah. My point is that
If somebody worships someone else, they are worshiping another God, and that
okay,
is a
so
direct
this is my point.
violation.
No, okay, so this is
But
my point.
but what other people?
Okay, so this is my point.
Sorry, Nate.
What does worship mean?
Acknowledging someone else as
Elohim.
in the place of the authority, who is worthy of worship. So you're questioning what is
Well, and like
worship.
here's a perfect example of that, Nate.
Mother
Where
Earth,
the
Mother
Jehovah's
Earth.
Witnesses.
There's that, but what about even Mother Earth? When you give credit, when you take credit away from God and give it to something else, I would say that even that, I'm sure there's a million other examples, but if you take credit away from God,
So
who
that's your definition?
no, it's not. You want? Do I need
It's
to
an
look up a
example.
definition? Is this that
No,
kind of conversation?
No. It's just a. It's proving
Explain
the opposite point of that.
Man.
That it's not the only. The Sabbath isn't the only command that people will get into the weeds with. Is all he's saying.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's my point. That's my point.
The Sabbath is the only one that's getting
He's not
distorted.
doing it for the sake of argument. He's doing it to prove the point that other people will dig into the weeds on all of them to prove that they don't have to follow it to whatever God's
the main thing is that the words on the page don't have any power without an active God, and so the main reason why I think Catholicism is the best is because like better than your shitty religion is because
I don't have a religion, so I would say that I'm in better shoes.
Well, I meant the universal your. I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to you.
Touche, salesman. Go on.
Group. Is because have you ever read the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov?
No, the science fiction writer. No.
Yeah, I know, like, pedophilia and everything. He's a terrible man, but it's a real one thing that's really interesting about that series is the whole concept is that there's this galactic. It's a sci-fi. It's one of the classic sci-fis. There's a galactic empire, and the galactic empire is collapsing, and they know this, and they know there's going to be dark ages to come. So, in order to shorten the amount of time between, world peace and world peace, they make this foundation of people who can propagate the new empire. Well, there's this group of essentially sociologists that plan this out, but then there's this sequel called The Second Foundation, and what they found out is while this, and it's hundreds of years of history, like this one planet is going to be and it's all about like Britain and Rome, and this one planet's going to be the capital, and then it takes over these other planets by economy and then religion. Like, really interesting series. But the point is that these people don't live; they die. It's hundreds of years of history. Well, there's this other book called The Second Foundation where they find out that there's this secret society that they started where it is carrying on the legacy of the people who made the plan. So these people are the same people, they're the inheritors of the people who made the plan, so that if anything goes awry, those people can come in and help. Right? Does that make sense? That's their whole purpose. You follow what I'm saying so far?
Kind of.
Not extrapolating, like you just see why that would be useful. Like if you're familiar with the series, it's really interesting. My point is that the Bible is open to endless interpretation and endless bickering clearly.
There are some things that are emphatically black and white in the Bible. I'm not
Okay,
saying that this is one of them. There are some that are.
Let's take the things that you say are emphatically black and white. How many people do you think are going to disagree with you on those things?
There are plenty that would, yes.
So do you, like me as a person, I might not disagree with you on those things, but do you think I would be capable of coming up with an argument for why those things are wrong? Like I'm pretty good at playing devil's advocate.
Yes, yeah, and I am too. I know what you mean.
So
I'm saying that any person that is fond of logic, facts, etymology, context, hermeneutics would unequivocally agree in a debate. So, for instance, if somebody were to try to justify sodomy as a good behavior, as a God-given great behavior, and I were to be in a debate with them, I would be able to win that debate without any fear of losing, because I know it's emphatically black and white, and even lowly me could win that debate. So there's just certain things, but I would say that the Sabbath has been a split two ways kind of thing, and I would also say that let me put it this way, the people that I have conversed with that say it's the Lord's Day, period. That it's a new day and it's the Lord's Day.
Where did that term come from?
Hold on. The people that would say that, I have never heard them have the same attitude, confidence, or, for lack of a better way of putting it, condescension towards the people. And I'm not saying that this necessarily means anything. I'm just giving an anecdotal observation, okay? But my anecdotal observation has been that people that claim that Sunday has absolutely replaced the Sabbath as the Lord's Day, and that we go into the week and we start the week from Sabbath rest because Christ has made things new, and so on and so on. You can listen to the sermon that it's not a sermon, actually. It's actually hold on.
If you could just do me a favor and not get ahead of me. I'm not even talking about the Sabbath.
The people that claim that absolutely it's Saturday, and the Saturday Sabbath is the only Sabbath, it always has been and it always will be, those people have always been more emphatic, confident, and condescending. And I'm just saying that that's an anecdotal observation. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So
I'll be right back. You keep on talking. I will be listening. I'm just muting myself.
Okay. Gosh dang it. My whole point, okay. I'll try to just make it really simple, because the main problem with smart people is, like, they really don't want to be led down a path of logic without trying to get ahead and arguing about the argument coming up or whatever. And it's frustrating if you're not even.
It's good to know you think we're smart, though.
Huh? It's frustrating. What?
I said it's good to know you think we're smart, though. Go on.
Yeah, too smart. It's frustrating because I know I'm not going down that path. So you're over here like trying to like really plan out going to France, and I'm like all the way to Germany. Just like, why are you guys fucking around back there? So anyway, so the point is that once you realize, and I'll just make it short because it whatever, I can't even do the whole thing. Once you realize that there is an active enemy constantly trying to use the Bible and to trick people, and always learning and always growing and always becoming smarter and more capable of destroying us and leading us into path where now they can convince us that love means sodomy, to address Devin's whole thing about sodomy. Now millions of people are convinced love means sodomy or free sex. It's very helpful to have an antidote to that is constantly saying, okay, now that the internet exists, this is what this passage means about that internet, that everyone can agree that person has been vetted and risen to the top, and we can trust them because we at least know they came from this tradition. Now, that can still be subverted, but it takes thousands of years to subvert it. All I'm saying. I know it's it doesn't even make sense because I couldn't just go down the logical pathway without being subverted in France, but
no, it makes perfect sense.
That's all I'm saying. The value of it is very valuable. Like if we all had one pastor, we could say that pastor at least knows what he's talking about. Like there's not a single pastor, there's not a single Christian on the face of the earth that has ever lived besides, Christ himself, who's arguably not a Christian. He's Christ, right? He's not a little Christ. He is the big Christ. There's not a single Christian on the face of the earth that every other Christian will be like, that guy at least knows what he's talking about. Somebody's going to be like, that guy definitely doesn't know what he's talking about.
And then we can say,
Paul, it could be Peter,
Yeah, well, because Paul said, "Follow me."
Yeah, Jesus said,
Paul did say
"Let
that.
the Holy Spirit be your teacher."
But that's not Paul. So Paul said, "Follow me" in regards to behavior. He was just talking about, hey, I'm a leader for the sake of discipleship. That's really the main thing that he was saying. But
well, yeah, I mean, you could say you could follow his discipleship model, but he always pointed back to Christ as the example to follow.
Yes, he did. But because they didn't have the convenience of watching Christ. That's why he said what he said. Anyway.
But Paul did and said other things than write, a few, like a dozen letters. Like when you think about it, like if you really look at it objectively, is when all you have to go off of is a dozen letters written by a guy who obviously you venerate, but it's a dozen letters written by a guy to other groups that might have nothing to do with what you're doing. It's like, that's not enough. And
all truth is God's truth, though.
Yeah, but Nate's point is that like those letters were written to specific people with very specific problems, and then there are people that want to quote them and say, well, yeah, this is what Paul said we should be living our life by. Well, yeah, but if
Paul didn't write a book of law, like if you're gonna really live by the Bible, then you should live by the book of Deuteronomy. That's the most logical. There's no other book that is structured as a code of law in the right way. Leviticus, but it's for the priests. Deuteronomy.
And then like I would argue that you could probably take Deuteronomy and one of the Gospels when Jesus actually breaks down exactly how to put the law into application and what the usefulness of it is.
Yeah. All the other things would be very helpful for understanding the book of Deuteronomy.
Or if you're having like Paul's letters, I think is like, I'm struggling with this specific issue. Yeah. Oh, well, this church was also struggling with this specific issue. We can refer to this letter. Not that all of it's not edifying, not that all of it's not good for doctrine, for reproof, and for correction in very, very specific circumstances or even multiple circumstances. But I would agree that Paul's letters are very dictatorial to the people that he was serving. And Paul also refers a lot to remember the work that I did when I was with you, pointing to things that he was physically doing with them. Remember the time that I was with you and we did these things? How are you so quick to abandon what I showed you when I was there? Like, and he alliterates to a lot of things that he did with them that he doesn't necessarily describe in detail.
Yeah.
So
If
it's a lot of his was example based too, and we don't. It's like stuff that happens in a movie that you don't necessarily see on screen that's being referred to. I don't know. Like that's just my. That's always kind of been my thought on Paul, and not like and you know he's incredibly like I'm very grateful that Paul wrote the letters that he did and that we get to see them because I think they are incredible in dealing with very good correction and reproof for very specific circumstances in a lot of cases growing churches. So
He was also,
and the problems that they'll run into.
one-on-one discipled by Jesus himself after the resurrection. It's a very fascinating component of his, for 3 years.
It's a staggering claim. Staggering. Like one-on-one tutelage with Christ.
For 3 years. I mean,
so I committed to doing a different stream, and I just really got excited about trying to finish a point. And that was about 40 minutes ago. So
okay, yeah, I'm wrapping this up in 9 minutes anyway. So
yeah, I don't even know if they're still going because I missed out on it.
Sorry
But
about that.
I haven't been at 100%, so I'm like,
maybe it's for the best. I don't know.
I'm doing my best. Also, I can't cuss because he's got kids around. It's like I really can't be myself.
Hey, I love you. Thank you for that though.
Yeah, I'm doing my best.
And also, for what it's worth, I'm glad you were here, and the conversation has been really good, and you challenged me to think a lot. So
yeah, it'd probably be great when I listen to it tomorrow. But I don't know. Yeah, the biggest thing is like it would be very valuable if it's like Paul lived after he wrote those letters. Like he lived a whole life. And a lot of what they teach in churches, it's like that's not in the letter. They don't. How do they know that Paul, got crucified in Rome or whatever, got martyred? Like they know that from tradition. So they still teach tradition. The only thing the Catholic Church says that's like, well, that might be wrong, is we know how Paul lived after that. We know how Mary actually lived. That's not recorded in the Bible. We know it. It's been preserved traditionally through oral tradition. And it's like you can argue that that's incorrect, but if it is correct, it's way valuable in addition to the epistles, arguably way more valuable. Like if Paul sat down and said, this is how a church service will go. You'll do this and then this and then this. This would be the best thing. Trust me, guys. That would be a really valuable epistle. It wouldn't be nearly as much argument amongst all the disparate churches. So all the Catholic Church says is we know the traditions. That's all it says. We know how Paul did his church service. You know what I mean? I don't know if they say that specifically, but I know they like claim like Paul's, like fourth inheritor. They know what he did, and Peter's fourth inheritor. They know what he did, and why he's a pope. So that's what the Catholic Church is claiming, and when you realize that that's necessary, that the epistles don't like line out a church service, they don't like really tell you how you should tithe. They don't really really beat you over the head about Sabbath being from sundown to sundown on Saturday or whatever, or midnight to midnight on Sunday. They don't do any of those things. Then it's really valuable to have a Catholic Church because it keeps all the things that people have killed each other and really like lost sight of through that. And then it's like once you think that that's possible, it's like, well, which church has the most fruit throughout history? Which church has converted more people to Christ than any church, more nations to Christ, has suffered more persecution than any other church? and it's not the Orthodox. It's like, how does the Greek Orthodox Church proselytize in Mexico? You know what I mean? No, the Greek Orthodox Church is for the Greeks. The Catholic Church has converted all the pagan nations of Europe. It converted all the pagan nations of the New World. For the most part, the Puritans and all them didn't do a great job of converting the Native Americans. The Catholics conquered and won. They win over and over again throughout all of history. So that's why I follow them, because they're fruitful, and I have yet to see anything that disobeys Christ or God. Anything. There's nothing.
You had
And, I
asked
mean,
for
you
a,
make- you
a
make-
definition of what
There's tons of
worship.
gray areas, but
Yeah, you had asked for a definition of worship earlier. It was, and I had it in the live stream for a little while, but to adore, to pay divine honors to reverence with supreme respect and veneration. And then this is Webster's 1828 for the reference.
okay,
Uh,
that was going to be my question.
yeah.
Okay, so Webster's 1828, does it have the same veracity as the Bible?
You asked for a definition
No.
of the word
Yeah,
worship.
but Chuck gets it. I'm not saying it's a wrong definition, Devin. All I'm saying is people
How
can.
do you define the word worship then? Are you trying
All I'm
to be a
saying,
solipsist and say that there's no such thing as meaning?
no. All I'm saying is
Okay, then you define worship then, bud.
all I'm
No,
saying.
you define worship.
Just relax. What I'm
No,
saying
you
is.
define worship. You
What I'm
told me to
saying.
define worship. You didn't like it. You define worship.
I like that definition. I would define it the same way. Can I say what I was going to say is people don't know what worship means. And
I
the
just gave the
Bible,
definition.
yeah, well, the Bible doesn't have a definition.
Do some people worship Mary?
Do some people worship Mary?
Question mark, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And would that be idol worship?
Yeah, that would be idol worship under the laws of the Catholic Church, even.
Great. Good.
So my whole point is that.
So people have a lot of false perceptions of Catholicism, what you're saying, including some of the popes themselves.
Well, that and, well, yeah. People have false conceptions about the popes, and there are certain popes that are not popes. But also the Bible is not.
By that, do you mean that like they weren't acting in the correct role, or they assumed the role of pope and they did it incorrectly? I'm asking literally. I'm not being facetious here.
Right. What I mean is that when all of the things that are normally attributed to a pope to make them, a bad thing, like when a Baptist says a pope is a bad thing because you shouldn't say this one man is infallible. Those things would not have applied to those popes. And every single one of those popes existed at a time where the actual Catholic law would show that they weren't popes. Like, for instance, the Catholic law would prevent a sodomite from being a pope, because if you endorse the lifestyle of sodomy, you're living in heresy, which means you're not a clergy member. You can't be a clergy member. You're automatically rejected from the clergy, which means you definitely could not be a pope. So if a pope rises to pope and it's discovered that he was a pedophile and he's totally unrepentant, then he was never the pope. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if we discovered Christ had sin, then Christ was not God. Christ didn't have sin, but with these men who are in the position of pope, it's a very, very strict position that's rejected by the way they act. Like, you're not that if you did that. Christ isn't God if he sins. That's all I'm saying.
But I mean, isn't that holding a pope to a ridiculous standard, like to say that they couldn't ever sin? Or are you saying that if they were living in unrepentant?
No. That standard is for Christ. It's not for a pope. No, what I'm saying is that I don't know all the laws about the pope, but for instance, like if a pope is speaking on like doctrinal matters in a certain position, he is infallible at that time. And I think it has to do with interpreting scripture. So it's not as strict as like the qualifications for Christ himself. But all I'm saying is like if a pope was sitting in the papal seat and saying, and I'm not like the expert on Catholic law, I don't find it extremely important to understand it. But if a really doing my best to do this, if a pope is sitting in the papal seat and then he says, you know, sodomy is endorsed by God, then not only is he not a pope at that moment, he was never the pope ever.
Okay, so it's a no true Irishman kind of thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Under that definition, the current pope would be not a pope.
Yeah.
Because he's saying that homosexuality is endorsed by God, which would make his papacy illegitimate in your eyes.
I'm aware that
the main thing
massive majority of current modern Catholics deny the current pope. I get that. I don't even know the ones that accept him.
The main thing about the pope is you have to understand is that Catholics don't take the pope as seriously as non-Catholics do. The Pope has very little authority to speak into our individual lives.
Like does his authority not trickle down through to the bishops, archbishops, the bishops?
Yeah, but the amount of things he can speak on is very, very limited. The main thing about the Pope is he's in a very respected position. So if he has an opinion, people take it very, very seriously. Just like in your church, people will take your pastor's opinion seriously. That's the main thing.
All right. We need to close it up because my wife's waiting on me. Bodito Bear shared a pretty significant comment there, Nate, which I know you'll appreciate.
Also, thanks for being willing to clarify too, Nate.
The Pope.
Yeah, and I don't know much about it. The Pope doesn't matter that much.
According to Bodito Bear, the Pope is giving up specific forms of sodomy for Lent. So there may be hope for this Jesuit yet. I'm being extremely sarcastic. I don't actually foresee very much hope for any
It's so
Jesuit.
Gay when people say sedevacantism has been thoroughly debunked. It's so gay when someone ever says anything has been thoroughly debunked.
Yeah, well,
the gayest thing. By who?
You actually said that tonight by saying that everybody believes that Jesus is God. So you kind of did the same thing.
No. What I said is people who don't believe Jesus is God are kind of stupid in this particular crowd. That's what I said.
Okay.
When someone says it's been thoroughly debunked,
that
make it sound like
that is a fair statement.
Scientists who are in charge of it who have an infallible opinion because of their process of Scientology. That's what they make it sound like.
All right. So, as per tradition, as I'm trying to finish a stream, that's when I have the highest numbers.
Naturally.
So it went from 8 to 15 in a matter of seconds. As I said, I was saying goodbye.
Just joined, jump over to YouTube and rewatch the entire stream and give a thumbs up. And if you don't, we can't be friends.
Something like that. Or, subscribe to everybody that's here. Click on everybody's name. Follow the folks that are here.
It's the bear thing.
Hey, thanks for denouncing that heretic in my comments. I haven't read it yet, but I'm just looking at my notifications right now.
Oh yeah. The be a bird, whatever in the world. Who wants to be a bird?
There's a reason why there's so many bees in her name.
Yeah.
She is a bee.
Well, I don't even care about the rhetoric. I do care about just if somebody's speaking false. It just.
Well, she's obsessed with money. All you have to do is look at those subscriptions. Money and
well, I mean, and just remember, guys, we all have to give accounts for our words and our actions. So nothing that's said will be hidden. Nothing that's in your heart won't be exposed.
All
We
right.
all have to give account for our actions. So.
I came up with a new. You guys might not have heard this because I don't expect you to watch all my streams or any of them per se. But I changed it over from "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength" to the following: follow Yahweh, not your way. So this is my new sign off. I just figured I'd switch it up this year, and
That's pretty fancy.
yeah, you're welcome.
I heard it. I thought it was pretty lit.
All right,
as
guys.
the kids say.
Have a good night, Nate.
Yep.
You know, I'm just a little autistic sometimes, so I wasn't actually trying to chop your head off or anything.
No, I've been having a tough
Listen,
time.
we're all aggressive males, and we're allowed to be aggressive from time to time. Okay.
You define religion for me now.
Yeah, it's okay.
Anyway,
The important thing is I won.
Oh yeah, I guess
That's Nate's famous sign-off line. The important thing is I won.
How could I argue with that? As always, how could I even argue that? All right, everybody have a good night. Goodbye, and see y'all.
See ya.
Lord willing, I'll see y'all again.